Ainda não é sexta-feira, onde teremos a TGS da Square Enix, e ainda não é sábado, onde a própria Square Enix marcou um evento só de Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Mas eles falaram assim, quer saber? Dane-se, vamos lançar a informação agora, do nada, sem, sabe? Bora! Tem preview aqui de galera que já jogou o jogo, tem informações novas que foram colocadas ali sobre a exploração do jogo, sobre como vai funcionar a gameplay. A Square é assim, irmão, do nada a gente acorda com novas informações. Então vem comigo que tem bastante coisa pra gente passar. E eu queria começar aqui, rapaziada, com a preview da Eurogamer, porque além deles terem jogado, eles nem passaram algumas informações e normalmente eu gosto dos vídeos da Eurogamer. Então chega mais, vamos lá.
Oh no, you don't.
O golfinho! Irmão, o
One of those really
golfinho.
special moments in Final Fantasy VII Remake was when you simply looked up. Finally, you could see the
Caralho,
plates
olha,
of
olha, o
Midgar
Chocobo tá com a
hanging
armadura, irmão.
threateningly over the slums. And in daylight, too. This was something that could only be hinted at in the original game, with its pre-rendered backgrounds in what felt like perpetual night. Seeing the enhancements a remake could bring, how it could give life to scenes and locations and narrative beats that up until then lived only in your imagination, was awe-inspiring. When Eurogamer's
Caralho.
Ed Nightingale finally got to go hands-on with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth recently, he had a similar experience to that first time he looked up in Remake. So here are his thoughts, which you can also read on the Eurogamer site. This time though, instead of looking up, the moment was getting to walk through its open world. The vague
Nossa,
polygonal
isso é nada com
blobs of
Chocobo,
blues
amigo.
and
Assim, era de se
greens of
esperar
the
mesmo.
original
Olha o Red
overworld
ali,
map
velho.
that just kind of suggested places are gone. Instead, it's an actual explorable open world. An industrial
É um mundo
wasteland
aberto
covered in
mesmo.
garbage and what looks an awful lot like toxic waste. The planet, as Avalanche tried to tell us, has been abused. Some wildlife does
Pode ser que
remain
quis
if you know
da
where to
área,
look
né?
though. We spotted a pack of cute bunnies bouncing through the metal-laced undergrowth.
Report that it is capable of catching prey with lightning quickness. Upset? Predators' hunting habits? Perhaps we... So all of this is Junon?
Above the wasteland we found ourselves in was the imposing military city of Junon, easily recognized by Final Fantasy VII fans by its enormous central cannon, casting a shadow over the inhabitants living in squalor below. Though not quite as iconic as Midgar, this reimagined and expanded Junon still gives a sense of how vast and expansive Rebirth looks set to be. Rebirth, of course, both looks and plays very
materiais
similarly
ali, tá
to
vendo?
Remake, but it's been supercharged. It's faster, it's flashier, it's more exciting. It offers best-in-class visuals, sound and cinematography. In its best
Cinematografia
moments,
incrível.
it feels like playing through a movie. Advent Children, but you're mostly in control. Much of this is to be expected after the success of Remake. After all, it already pushed the boundaries of what the original game, and the notion of a remake, could be, in more ways than one. More of the same is certainly not a bad thing, and now there's also a handful of enhancements to raise the bar once again. Yet what undoubtedly intrigues, interests, yet maybe even
What's
slightly
that zone?
worries us the most about Rebirth are the story changes and consequences brought about by the end of Remake. Something we'll have to wait until the full release of Rebirth to fully understand.
Ah, obviamente eles não iam mostrar isso nas previews, né?
Our recent hands-on with Rebirth provided 2 missions to play through.
Mano, a
Those two
gente
missions
controla
were the Fate
100%
of
o
Mount Evil
Sephiroth,
mission
amigo.
and the open wilds of Junon. The first was a straightforward linear quest typical of Remake. It's based on a flashback from the original game, which was also playable, that occurs at a similar point in the story shortly after the party leaves Midgar. In Cloud and Tifa's hometown of Nibelheim, a young Tifa, complete with iconic cowgirl fit, leads new soldier recruit Cloud and his hero Sephiroth and an unnamed grunt from the town
tem
into
um-
the
tem
mountains and to
guardinha ali,
a
né?
nearby Mako reactor. Here, though, the Mako Spring
certo
looks far
guardinha.
more spectacular than in the original game, as it fizzes with turquoise energy. Traversal to the reactor is more elaborate than in the original too,
Olha, irmão.
climbing sections through jagged rocks under a grey sky, a foil to the vivid rainbows of materia and magic effects in battle. It also builds towards a boss fight against a Materia Guardian, the Materia Keeper from the original game, a sort of bat-slash-beetle-like demon that flies over the party. What truly made this section special, though, is that for the very first time, Sephiroth is playable. In the original, he did appear in Cloud's party at this point in the game, but his moves were handled by AI.
Eu
Here,
tava
he
achando que ia
stepped
ser
out with a
tipo
full suite of materia, his iconic Masamune
Son
sword,
tá ligado? Mas
and
não.
just like in the original
Irmão, a
game,
gente
he is
joga.
levels higher than Cloud. Though, here, not by quite as much. His attacks alternate between a powerful pierce and a sword dance combo, with his Hell's Gate ability acting like a dragoon's leaping downward thrust. Plus, he's got his Octo Slash limit break. At this point in the story, Sephiroth is Cloud's hero and a bit of a folk legend, so it makes sense he'd be so strong. As in the original flashback mission, Sephiroth is so utterly overpowered, it kind of trivializes the whole mission and makes Cloud feel a little bit excess to requirements. And rightfully so.
Pô, irmão, que massa, cara. Eu jurava que a gente não ia ter um controle total dele.
Sephiroth.
A boizinha mais...
This mission did highlight
Mais
a couple
jovial
of new
do Cloud.
materia, suggesting the system will be more expansive compared with Remake. We picked up an auto-cast materia that automatically casts spells for you, and a
Irmão.
magnify materia that expands the range of a spell. As with the original game, these can be paired with spell materia for new effects. We also grabbed a brand new
Cara, o menu
2-in-1
tá muito
lightning
massa, mano.
and wind materia, which casts both spells at once, further streamlining our collection.
Ah lá. Pô, legal, hein?
Otherwise, this was mostly the same old remake.
Lançar duas magias ao
You
mesmo
still
tempo.
sit on benches to rest and recover HP and MP while your travel buddies awkwardly wait and watch. Outside of battle, Cloud's sword swipes to destroy boxes are still oddly static. And he's still occasionally forced to walk through certain areas, story depending. This mission also gave a taste of a major new addition to combat: synergy. Battles work in the same way as before. Regular attacks build up your ATB gauge, which is spent on abilities and spells, while taking damage builds the limit break gauge. Synergy attacks sit somewhere in between abilities and limit breaks. Each ability use adds one synergy point to a character. Once two characters have built enough points, typically 2 each, they can unleash a synergy attack, a flashy pairing that combines each character's abilities and does decent damage. It means players are encouraged to regularly alternate between characters, synergy attacks
Entendi.
acting like a mini reward of sorts. There are additional synergy
Porque
skills
gasta um pouco
accessed by
dos
guarding
dois
that again
personagens,
pair
né,
up
pra poder
characters,
fazer.
but
Interessante.
are a bit less effective. While these attacks do add another layer to combat, they don't add a massive amount of strategy. It almost feels like the developers added them in just to add something fresh. We actually found it a bit overwhelming, having a whole load of new abilities to consider and even more flashy effects popping off. But
achou que
this
tem
is
muita
likely
coisa?
also just
Bom,
the
é
nature of a
pouco do
preview
início do
event
jogo,
dropping
né?
us partway into a game. We may
É.
have just needed a little more time to understand each
Pra dar uma
combination.
acostumada, pra dar uma
But maybe
acostumada.
that's also just us being greedy and wanting more time to play.
Nice work.
Precisa dar uma acostumada.
The synergy attacks in the flashback mission were obviously only between Cloud and Sephiroth, but the next mission we played, set outside Junon, showed off more. Here in our party was Cloud, Aerith, Tifa, Barret, and Red 13, with striking and extravagant synergy attacks between all combinations. Firework Blade, for instance, was between Aerith and Cloud, a shimmering barrage of magical sword swipes. Planetary Roar was between Aerith and Red 13, where she tickles his chin before they unleash
Limite
magical
zone.
explosions. Divine Punishment is the attack between Aerith and Tifa that you may have caught in a previous trailer. For the most part, regular open-world enemies are dispatched way too quickly to build up the points necessary to unleash synergy attacks, So these moves will be most useful during longer encounters and major boss battles.
É bom que você
The
segura
Junon
também
mission
o
was
recurso,
all
né?
about showing off the game's open world, albeit a small section of it. And there are a few additions to flesh it out, including a new crafting system that really just seems like a legal requirement now of all open world games. Players can collect raw materials to craft new items, armors, and accessories. These
Armaduras?
materials are mostly metal ores and herbs, but one material was called Manifestation of the Planet's Favor, so make of that what you will.
Você chega a fazer poção
Chocobo
mesmo.
are important for traversal too, of course, and come with a new reorchestrated theme. Riding
Olha o
them is
chocobozinho, que
obviously
bonitinho.
much faster than running on foot, but they're able to sniff out hidden treasure too as a bonus. That said, these particular chocobos seemingly can't jump, meaning they frustratingly suddenly halt before any jagged environment. The recent PlayStation State of
Ali
Play
você ativa
trailer
fast
showed
travel.
chocobo of other colors with flight and climbing abilities. Visit a Choco Boutique and you can now kit out your birds
Boa.
in various armors.
Pô,
Adorably, you can also follow Chocobo chicks to Chocobo bus stops, unlocking fast travel options.
foi o que a gente viu agora. Pô, cara. Que massa, dá pra customizar tudo do Chocobo, mano.
Some enemy
Armadura,
encounters out in the
cor da
wild have
armadura.
extra objectives too, like a time limit or needing to pressure or stagger enemies in a specific way, and these can be repeatedly replayed. Completing these objectives will provide additional rewards not shown in this demo. Square Enix has also promised dozens of side quests and mini-games, so collectively this open world will provide plenty of reasons to explore and appears far less linear than Remake.
Não só
After joining the
o
party at
remake,
the end
mas
of Remake,
o 16
everyone's
também, né?
favorite
Tá,
talking beast, Red 13, is finally fully playable in Rebirth.
parecia ser bem
Swiping
mais
with claws,
expansivo.
his moveset feels more scrappy, frantic, and animalistic compared with other characters. His unique ability is the Vengeance Gauge, which builds by guarding attacks. Activating Vengeance mode then heightens his attacks and dodge speed. His iconic Siphon Fang spinning attack also proves powerful. Red 13 is, ultimately, an up-close and defensive fighter, without the powerful elegance of Tifa, and he slots neatly into the party. Incidentally, now that we have more party members
bem
traveling with
rápido
us,
mesmo.
those not directly controlled in battle will hang back and are visible skirting the battlefield without taking part.
Deu pra ver ali.
After exploring the Junon fields, we headed
Barrett
to the
is-
slums beneath the city, where we encountered faces familiar to players of the original. The young Priscilla, her pet dolphin, Mr. Dolphin, and a boss battle against sea creature Terror of the Deep, aka Bottom Swell from the original game. Bit of a name glow up there, really. This acted as a culmination of battle skills up to this point, switching characters to build up synergy points, unleashing combo attacks, and reveling in the exceptional animations.
Pô, e é aí
It
que
feels
aparece
as
a Yuffie,
satisfying
pô.
as Remake ever did, with synergy attacks just another example of the seamless shift from cinematic to action. There was one major difference from the original game, however. It was Yuffie stranded in the water who the party needed to save, not Priscilla.
I taste terrible!
Is this the first time the party encounters Yuffie in
É sim.
Rebirth? Well, that wasn't entirely clear, though as you can see in the cutscene, her first lines are dubbed with question marks until Priscilla, who does seem to know Yuffie, shouts to her. It all does definitely suggest, however, that
O
the party's
golfinho que
meeting
salvou
Yuffie
ela,
will be part
parceiro.
of the main story, and her addition to the party will not be optional, as it was in the original. But after the release of episode Intermission, that's hardly surprising. Rebirth has some changes then, both compared to the original and Remake. There are tweaks to the story, new wrinkles in combat, and an open world that's simply brimming with potential. Visually, it's hugely impressive too, and a step up from Final Fantasy XVI. It's familiar, yet fresh, the sort of magical spectacle that fans will relish. And with the latest trailer from the recent PlayStation State of Play, there's an exuberant display of fan service. The Gold Saucer returns with updated minigames. Familiar characters will be playable. Hey there, Kechi and Vincent. And some truly spectacular looking summons will be included. But what we really want to know is, will there be more fundamental plot changes? How will this second part end? Although we think we know, in part, the answer to that one. What's up with Zack? We are just itching to find out. Let us know your theories and thoughts on Rebirth in the comments. Is Square Enix going to change up the story dramatically? Do you want it to?
Cara, eu acho que é engraçado, que não adianta, pô. Preview com um monte de coisa,
Does Red 13 look riding a chocobo?
mas tem
We'll have
que
loads more videos on Rebirth, so make
ficar
sure and
martelando
subscribe if you
no
haven't
tipo assim,
already.
como vai terminar o final, né? Mas isso aí é culpa da Square também, né? Eles que cavaram isso. Mas, mano, cara, que quanta coisa, porra, pica que mostrou ali. Eu não imaginava que essa parte que ia ter ali de Junon, né? Que a gente já sabia que ia ter uma demo jogável dessa parte. Basicamente, eles jogaram a demo que tá lá na TGS, né? Essa foi a preview lá. E que é o flashback do Cloud com Sephiroth e também uma parte um pouco mais explorável em Junon. Eu não esperava que ia ter tanta coisa, porque mostrou ali uma side activity, acho que não era side quest, era uma side activity. Tinha, porra, exploração do Chocobo, você customiza o Chocobo, pô, você bota armadura no Chocobo, meu. Tem item de craft pra você fazer item, armadura e o caralho é 4. Mano, tem muito mais coisa do que eu imaginava que ia ter. O jogo parece estar delicioso demais. Que isso, cara. Graficamente falando, não dá pra gente ver porque o feed tá em 1080p. 1080p no YouTube destrói a qualidade, né? De forma geral, a compressão bem violenta. Mas já viram isso, um 60 FPS bonito. Então, cara, tá absurdo, tá incrível. E eu espero muito que a gente tenha acesso a essa demo da TGS. Seja pela BGS aqui ou posteriormente. Mas, rapaziada, deixa aí abaixo o que você achou mais maneiro aí dessa preview que a gente viu aqui da Eurogamer, com algumas passagens aí da demo. Comenta aí no campo de comentários, beleza? Se quiser dar uma ajuda aqui pro canal, considere assinar nosso PicPay que tá na descrição. A Sinossa tá ganhando algumas recompensas e vai estar ajudando a gente a ficar independente pra gente só produzir conteúdo aqui pra vocês. Mas, se quiser dar uma ajuda menos compromissada, tem a nossa coleção de camisas da loja.com.br/ataque crítico pra você ficar no estilo. Também o cupom pra você usar na sua assinatura do Nerd ao Cubo, que se bem tem todos os meses com desconto, que o cupom Lente VR pra proteger teu visor e não precisar mais óculos de jogar quando estiver jogando. Beleza, clã? Foi por aqui, então, valeu, um abraço e até mais.